Nathan had learned to read the forest the way he once read battlefield maps by what moved, what didn't, and what went suddenly, unnaturally quiet. This world's jungle didn't grow so much as it curled. Spiral-trunked trees rose in burgundy. Corkscrews, their bark nearly black in dusk. Their leaves a shimmer of iridescence that caught both fading suns, and threw the light back in bruised violets and soft blues. Beneath them, the ground was padded with strange violet fronds that crunched like dried paper under his boots. Nathan Richards, formerly lieutenant of the Galactic Alliance Marines, now simply the man who didn't die, pushed through the undergrowth, with a makeshift spear in one hand and a habit of listening with the other. 5 years stranded. 5 years since his transport had been hit, and his escape pod had fallen like a meteor into wilderness no chart had bothered to name. Everyone else was gone. No signals, no rescue, no human voices, but his own, turned hoarse from being used only for prayers and curses. He reached for the canteen at his hip and shook it. A pathetic slosh answered, running low. He muttered to nobody, voice swallowed by the forest's breath, again. At 42, he wasn't the young Marine who'd once sprinted obstacle courses for sport, but he was still powerful in the way survival makes you powerful. Muscle built from hauling water, splitting wood, dragging carcasses, climbing ridges with a stomach half empty and a mind unwilling to surrender. His regulation haircut had grown out into dark brown streaked with silver. Stubble shadowed a jaw that had learned to set itself against despair. His blue eyes held the fine lines of sun and strain and, occasionally, the stubborn amusement that came from realizing the universe could be cruel and absurd at the same time. Above him, the canopy trembled with the distant shriek of flying reptiles he dubbed shriers. The sound like metal tearing. Nathan tightened his grip on the spear and moved faster. Twilight was when teeth came out. Night predators emerged hungry and fearless, and the jungle beautiful in daylight became a maze of ambush. The path to his freshwater spring was barely more than memory worn into dirt. He followed it through denser stands of spiral trees where shadows stacked like layers of ink. Both suns slipped lower, casting long double-angled silhouettes that made every trunk look like a reaching hand. That was when he heard it, not a shriek, not the rustle of a stalking beast. A sound too soft, too shaped, a gasp pained, unmistakably intelligent. Nathan stopped so abruptly the forest seemed to lean into the silence. For a heartbeat he wondered if his mind had finally cracked and started making people out of wind. Then the sound came again. He moved toward it, careful as a man approaching a live grenade. The undergrowth resisted, thick and waxy, but he pushed through into a small clearing where tall purple grass rippled like water. A figure lay half hidden in it. Nathan's breath left him in one stunned exhale. Wholly, she was female, humanoid, not human. Lavender skin caught the last light and seemed to glow from within, as if the color belonged to moonlight rather than flesh. Long white hair spilled around her head like liquid silver. Her suit dark and close-fitted looked grown rather than sewn, as if it bonded to her skin. It was torn open at the side, and beneath it, a vicious wound oozed dark purple blood. Her eyes fluttered open as Nathan approached, storm gray. wide with fear. She tried to scramble backward, away from him, but pain folded her in half. A cry tore from her throat. She clutched her side, and her fingers came away slick with violet blood. Nathan set his spear down and lifted both hands, palms open. "Easy," he said, slow and low. "I'm not going to hurt you." She spoke musical syllables, quick and urgent, but they meant nothing to him. Her gaze kept darting past him into the forest, as if something else had chased her here. Nathan swallowed and pointed to his canteen, then to her cracked lips. "Water," he said carefully. Unscrewing the cap, he tipped it toward her in a visible offering. "You need water." Understanding flickered across her face like sunrise behind clouds. She nodded weakly. Nathan knelt beside her and lifted her head with a gentleness that surprised even him. She drank like someone who'd crossed a desert, gulping and swallowing. Eyes half closed in desperate relief, Nathan let her take more than he should have. His own thirst could wait. Something in him older than military discipline, older than. Fear insisted that this mattered when she finally stopped. She looked at him as if seeing him for the first time, not as a threat, as something else. Her hand rose, trembling, and brushed his forearm. The contact sent a sharp, electric awareness through him. 5 years without another sentient touch. 5 years of being a lone spark in a dark wilderness. He forced his mind back to the wound. From his pack, he pulled the pouch of broad green. Leaves he'd learned to trust. He discovered them in his first year and tested them through brutal trial, crushed into pulp. They sealed cuts and slowed infection. A gift from the planet, paid for in blood and pain. He pointed to the leaves, then to her injury. She watched intently, then nodded once, jaw tightening against pain. Nathan crushed the leaves in his palm until they bled bitter sap and pressed the mouse carefully against the torn flesh. She hissed, body tensing, but she didn't pull away. The pulp darkened as it bonded, forming a tight seal across the wound's edges. Her breathing eased, not healed but no longer fading. She spoke, again, slower, softer. Her grey eyes held something that looked dangerously like gratitude. Nathan rose, reclaiming his spear. The forest behind him had begun to thicken into night. "I'll come back tomorrow," he said, though she couldn't understand the words. He tried anyway, because talking to another mind felt like sunlight after years underground. Stay hidden. Rest. She reached to her throat and unclasped a small pendant that glowed faintly. It looked like a polished stone wrapped in delicate metal filigree alive with inner light. She pressed it into his palm and closed his fingers over it with surprising strength. Her eyes sharpened, intense. She spoke as if giving an oath. Nathan nodded, helplessly solemn. "Okay," he whispered, "okay." Then he turned and ran for his cabin before the jungle became a mouthful of teeth. His cabin was a patchwork of stubbornness and scrap, metal plating scavenged from the escape pod, reinforced with hardwood beams, sealed with resin he'd learned to boil from alien trees. It was small, cramped, and had saved his life more times than he could count. That night, Nathan barely slept. The pendant lay warm against his palm, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. He kept imagining storm-grey eyes and purple grass. The way fear had shifted into wonder. Near dawn, he dozed at last, and then the ground began to shake. Heavy footfalls, rhythmic and massive, thudded through the earth like a drumline. His eyes snapped open. For a disoriented second, he thought of earthquakes on Earth, of distant memories. Then his marine instincts slammed into place. Something had surrounded him. Nathan grabbed his spear and moved to the small window slit he'd cut into the wall. He looked out. His breath caught so hard it hurt. A perfect ring of beasts surrounded the cabin. Reptilian, enormous, built like dinosaurs, but sleek, with iridescent scales that shifted color in the morning light. Their bodies formed a living barricade. On each beast sat a warrior, 200 at least, all female, lavender-skinned, white-haired, armored in patterns that looked half organic, half technological, like circuitry grown into living metal. Spears rose in their hands, not aimed at his cabin, but held with disciplined readiness. In the center, the formation parted. A rider approached on the largest mount, its scales flashing like liquid opal. The woman from the clearing rode it, but she was transformed. Gone was the wounded, trembling stranger. This was someone regal, upright, commanding. Her armor gleamed with an inner light. A circlet of living metal crowned her brow. Her wound was gone as if it had never been. She dismounted and walked toward his door with fluid grace, her boots silent on the violet ground. Nathan's fingers tightened around his spear. He forced himself to breathe, and then opened the door and stepped out onto the porch. He held his weapon low, ready, not threatening. The woman's eyes lit up as if she'd found something precious. She smiled, and it changed her face from striking to breathtaking. She spoke, and Nathan understood. "I am Tyr," she said, voice melodic and clear, "Princess of the Valeri." Nathan stared. How can I?" To touch the pendant at her throat. It matched the one in his hand, now hanging from a cord around his own neck, as if his body had decided to claim it. "The soul stone," she said. "It learns language through contact. I placed mine in your hand as a life debt. It connected us. Double quotes. Nathan's pulse hammered. 5 years alone, and suddenly the universe handed him diplomacy and magic that wasn't magic. "You saved my life," Tyr continued. "You shared water when I stood at death's threshold. Nathan swallowed, words rough. "I did what anyone would do." Tyr's laugh rang like wind chimes. "No, Nathan of Earth. Among my people, to share water in the wild forest is the highest sacred act. We call it the river of trust." Behind her, the warrior shifted as one spears lifted in unison. A battle cry rose from 200 throats fierce and proud, sending chills across Nathan's skin. Tyr raised a hand and silence fell. "My scouts have watched you," she said, eyes narrowing with something between curiosity and respect. "For years, a sky stranger surviving where many of our strongest would perish." Nathan's throat went dry. "You've been watching me. We did not know what you were," Tyr said simply, "only that you were alone, dangerous, and unbroken." She stepped closer. The air around her smelled faintly of spiced cinnamon and something clean and strange like cold starlight. Nathan hated how quickly his body noticed her, as if loneliness had stripped him down to raw instinct. By saving the life of your princess, Tyr said softly, you have earned the loyalty of the Valeri. Our law is ancient. A life debt cannot be refused. Nathan looked past her at the ring of warriors, the disciplined beasts, the shimmering spears. What does that mean? He asked. It means, Tyr said, eyes steady. You have the right to ask anything of us. His mind flashed with practical needs, stronger shelter, secure water, help hunting night predators, a search for salvage, a road back to his pod, maybe even a way to contact the Alliance. But the waiter looked at him made those thoughts scatter like startled birds. The soul stone against his chest pulsed warmly, as if echoing his heartbeat. He started, then stopped, stunned by the truth rising through him. Tyr's expression softened. The soul stone reveals more than language, she murmured. It reveals what is real. Her hand rose and cupped his cheek, fingers tracing his jaw with a reverent curiosity that made his breath catch. Our bodies differ, she said, but our souls recognize each other. Is it not so on your world? On my world, Nathan managed, voice hoarse. We usually take time. Tyr smiled. We have time. She turned and spoke sharply to her warriors. Immediately, they moved with practiced efficiency and packing, setting a perimeter, erecting structures that seemed to grow from the ground in luminescent arcs. They were making camp around his cabin as if it were a sacred site. Tyr faced him again, eyes bright with promise. Tonight, we will feast in your honor, the water giver. Nathan let out a shaky laugh, half disbelief. Water giver, he repeated. Tyr's grin widened. It suits you. By dusk, the clearing around Nathan's cabin had become a living circle of light. The Valeri tent's softly glowing structures rose like pale mushrooms from the earth. A bonfire crackled at the center, flames dancing orange against violet foliage. Nathan emerged from his cabin, wearing the cleanest clothes he owned, old salvaged fabric kept for occasions that never came. Tyr waited by the fire. She had changed from armor into a garment that flowed like liquid silver. The flames painted her lavender skin with warm highlights. Her hair, free and bright, shimmered when she moved. You look different, Tyr said, eyes sweeping him with open appreciation. Nathan snorted. I could say the same, not princess. Tyr corrected, stepping closer. To you, I am Tyr. She offered her hand. The gesture was strangely human. When he took it, the soul stone warmed, a pulse that felt like a shared breath. The feast was unlike anything Nathan had imagined. Strange fruits that tasted like citrus and honey, roasted meat rich and savory. Warriors approached him with solemn nods and curious looks. Not hostile, but assessing like soldiers meeting a new ally. Tyr stood and raised her voice. Tonight we honor the water giver, she declared, who has awakened the ancient bond between our peoples. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Nathan leaned toward her. Ancient bond. Tyr's gaze sharpened, and for a moment the princess looked less like a celebrant and more like a strategist. Our legends speak of sky people, she said. Long ago, they came to our world. They brought knowledge taught our ancestors to harness the energy that flows through all living things. She touched the intricate patterns on her skin. Up close, Nathan realized they weren't tattoos. They were something alive, technology integrated into flesh. They left relics, Tyr continued, but our understanding faded. And now, her eyes held his. Now you have returned. Nathan nearly choked on a piece of roasted meat. I'm not a prophecy. I'm a guy who crashed. Tires. Smile turned wry. Prophecy often chooses inconvenient vessels. Then her expression hardened. My people are at war, Nathan. With who? He asked. Valeri, Tyr said, and the name fell like a stone. They seek to conquer all Valeri lands. They possess corrupted relic-spurning spears that strike like sunlight. Nathan felt old instincts stir tactics, threats, priorities. And you think I can help? I know you can, Tyr said quietly. She leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper that threaded into his nerves. Your sky vessel, your escape pod fell in the Forbidden Valleys. My scouts found it years ago. Guardian beasts kept them away. Inside may be what we need to defeat Valeri. Nathan's mind snapped to the pod. Comm equipment, a sealed weapons locker. Emergency systems he'd never been able to fully access when he was injured and half delirious. Technology useless to him could be salvation to a people who understood energy as culture. I'll help, he said, surprising himself with the certainty in his voice. Tyr's eyes warmed. She pressed her forehead against his in an intimate, deliberate gesture. Thank you, she breathed. Later, she led him to a smaller tent, her quarters where relics lay arranged like offerings. Cracked dead topper. These old relays, metal components unmistakably human. We have collected these over generations, Tyr said, waiting for one who could awaken them. Nathan picked up a datapad, fingers remembering the shape. He pressed an old sequence. The screen flickered. A star map appeared, partial but real. Tyr inhaled sharply and pressed close to his side, all radiating off her like heat. You make it speak. It's just, Nathan began, then stopped. Because Tyr's face was inches from his, eyes wide, lips parted not in performance, but in wonder. The soul stone pulsed, a shared truth, wordless and undeniable, moved between them. That night, the war could wait, the future could wait. The forest held its breath while two lonely souls, each stranded in their own way, found a bridge. Dawn arrived with thunder again, but this time it was urgency, not surprise. A scout burst into camp astride a corva, its scales flashing warning colors of crimson and amber. Princess, the scout called. Dry hunting parties approach. From the eastern ridge, their scouts have found us. Tyr's posture changed instantly. The warmth of the feast vanished. The warrior remained. How many? She demanded. 3 parties at least. Burning spears. Black-scaled beasts. Nathan's marine training. Snapped into place as cleanly as an old uniform. How long? 1 hour, the scout said. Perhaps less. Tyr turned to Nathan. The journey to your vessel must wait. Nathan nodded. Show me what we're facing. Their tactics. Their range. Inside a hastily raised command tent. Crude drawings were scratched into bark and dirt. Dry riders. Fast mounts. Energy spears that glowed red like coals. They rely on speed, Tyr explained. Strike first, withdraw. Then we don't let them. Nathan said. He sketched a plan with a stick, choke points, ambush angles, forced dismounts. Use the forest. Make them fight close. Valeri commanders leaned in, skeptical at first, then intrigued. You see patterns. One murmured. You think. Like a storm. Nathan's smile was grim. Human warfare had thousands of years to evolve. We learned the hard way that strength isn't enough. When the ambush came, it was brutal and fast. Valeri warriors surged from concealment at Nathan's signal. Riders were yanked from saddles. The Dry leader fell first. Nathan drove his blade into a gap in armor before the enemy understood what he was. When the last burning spear sputtered out and the survivors fled, the clearing smelled of smoke and hot metal. Tyr found Nathan and grabbed him in a fierce embrace. Relief and fury tangled together. Your mind saved lives today, she murmured. Against his neck, Nathan exhaled shakily. That was scouting. They'll come back. Tyr's eyes burned with resolve. Then we reach your vessel before they do. At first light, Nathan, Tyr, and 20 of her finest rode for the forbidden valleys. Nathan rode behind Tyr on her corver, arms around her waist as the beast thundered forward. The world unfolded in impossible colors. Valleys of purple vegetation, blue glowing fungi in shadowed clefts, mountains twisted like spirals reaching for sky. You see beauty, Tyr said when he spoke of it. Many of my people see only danger. Both can be true, Nathan said. They reached the canyon rim by midday. The descent was narrow, a ledge barely wide enough. Below, perpetual twilight, pooled between stone walls lit by bioluminescent growth. The canyon beasts keep others away. Tyr warned, as if the world heard her. An unearthly howl echoed through the ravine. The attack came without warning. A massive armored arachnid-like creature dropped from the wall, eyes blazing, mandibles clicking. Canyon stalker, Tyr shouted. Valeri warriors formed a defensive ring. Energy spears crackled blue. The stalker struck with terrifying speed, sweeping limbs that sent bodies skidding. Nathan's gaze locked on gaps in the armor plates. Joints, he yelled, between the plates. Tyr moved like liquid lightning, vaulting onto the creature's back and driving her spear into a seam. Blue energy surged. The stalker convulsed. Nathan seized a fallen spear and thrust upward beneath the mandibles into softer tissue. The beast shrieked a sound like stone breaking and collapsed. For a heartbeat, the canyon went still except for heavy breaths. Tyr landed beside him, chest heaving, eyes bright with battle fire. You fight well, Sky Man. You're not so bad yourself, Nathan said, adrenaline making his laugh unsteady. Their soul stones pulsed together, warmth sensing like shared heartbeat. They pressed onward, made camp in a sheltered cave, and before sleep. Nathan stared out at alien stars and felt something he hadn't felt since before the crash. Peace. By dawn, they reached the plateau. Nathan's escape pod lay half buried in rock, dulled by years, wrapped in luminous vines. The hatch was still ajar. The interior, shockingly, had remained mostly sealed. Nathan climbed in and ran his fingers over the comm panel like touching an old friend. He entered his Alliance security code. The system hummed. A holographic display flickered to life, bathing the pod in blue light. Tyr stepped closer, all silent and immense. Nathan checked diagnostics. The quantum relay was damaged, but not dead. Repairable. Hope hit him so hard it was almost pain. "I can send a distress signal," he whispered. Then he opened the weapons locker. Pulse rifles, a service pistol, concussion grenades with half-charged cells. Not enough for a war, but enough to change a battle. A data crystal in a hidden compartment caught his eye. He slotted it into the reader. A star map appeared. Their location pulsed, and another marker blinked nearby. Forward Base Alpha. Nathan's stomach dropped. There were other humans here. Tyr's expression darkened. In the mountains beyond the northern valleys Valeri territory, the burning mountain, before he could process it, a shout came from outside. "Riders!" a scout cried, approaching from the south. Valeri, dozens. They'd been tracked. Tyr drew her spear. "We are outnumbered." Nathan slung a pulse rifle over his shoulder, mind running through angles and ammunition. "Then we make the pod the strong point. Get your warriors into cover. I'll teach you the rifles fast." They formed a defensive line around the escape pod as the Valeri climbed the narrow approach. Red burning spears glowing like hatred made visible. The first wave crested the plateau. Pulse rifles screamed blue-white bursts. The Valeri fell shocked by weapons beyond their corrupted relics, but they kept coming. Using bodies as shields, pressing with sheer numbers. Valeri warriors fought with lethal agility, but the line bent. Nathan took a glancing hit pain, searing his shoulder, where energy burned through armor. "Fall back," he ordered. Into the pod. They retreated inside the metal hull. Valeri surrounded them, preparing the final assault. Nathan's fingers tightened on his rifle. Power levels were dropping. Bodies were dropping. And then the comm panel flared. A human voice crackled through static female, authoritative, human survivor. "This is Captain Erica Chapman of the Alliance vessel Dauntless. We're reading an emergency beacon. Respond." Nathan lunged for the panel. "Dauntless, this is Lieutenant Nathan Richards. Alliance Marines, under attack. Need immediate support." A pause, then shock in the captain's tone. "Richards, you've been listed MEA for 5 years. Hold position. Dropship inbound. ETA 3 minutes. Nathan turned to Tyr, breath ragged with hope. "Help is coming." Tyr's eyes searched his, the soul stone pulsing like a shared heartbeat. "And after," Nathan swallowed, "if I leave with them, would you come?" Tyr's gaze softened and sharpened at once. "The prophecy does not say whether the sky person stays or returns," she whispered. "But I know what I wish." The pod shook as the Valeri launched their assault. Valeri and human braced together. And then the sky darkened as a massive shadow passed overhead. Alliance thrusters roared like judgment. The dropship descended onto the plateau, weapons firing precise bursts that scattered the Valeri. Marines poured out in full combat gear, securing the perimeter with practiced brutality. Captain Chapman strode down the ramp, eyes locking on Nathan. "Lieutenant Richards, you look like hell." Nathan's laugh came out half sob, half relief. "Good to see you too, Captain." Her gaze flicked to Tyr, and the Valeri. Professional curiosity sharpened. You've made allies. Nathan stepped beside her, shoulder to shoulder. This is Princess Tyr of the Valeri. She saved my life. Her people saved mine again. Chapman inclined her head respectfully. Your Highness, the Alliance thanks you. Tyr returned the gesture with regal poise. The river of trust flows between us now. Later, inside the dropship, Chapman laid out the truth Nathan had begun to suspect. This planet wasn't uncharted, she said. Forward Base Alpha was established 30 years ago, studying indigenous populations and a unique energy signature in the northern mountains. The burning mountain, Nathan murmured. The base was abandoned after an incident. Chapman continued. A research team went missing 25 years ago. Logs indicate they split, half wanted to share their discovery, half wanted to control it. They armed one faction, the Drari, Nathan said, pieces snapping into place. Chapman's jaw tightened. They violated every protocol, played gods, created this war. When Nathan and Chapman stepped back outside, Tyr waited, tension radiating through the soulstone link. You will leave now, Tyr said quietly, not quite a question, before Nathan could answer. Chapman spoke. Princess Tyr, the Alliance intends to establish formal diplomatic relations. Lieutenant Richards has recommended you as our envoy to the nearest outpost if you choose. Tyr looked at Nathan, eyes wide with possibility. You would take me to the stars? Nathan took her hands, rough human fingers wrapped around smooth lavender skin. Only if you want to. I lived in your world. Maybe it's time you saw mine. Tyr's smile trembled into something fierce and bright. Then yes. The Valeri warriors returned home with news. The Sky People had come again, not as ghosts of legend, but as allies. Tyr departed with Nathan aboard the Dauntless, planning to return within one lunar cycle. From orbit, Tyr pressed her palm to the viewport as her world shrank beneath them. It looks so small, she whispered. Nathan stood behind her, arms around her waist, chin resting on her shoulder. Wait until you see the stars up close. The weeks that followed blurred into discovery. Tyr learned human technology with startling speed. Curiosity burning brighter than fear. The soul stone translated when it needed to. But she began learning English anyway, determined to speak to his people without magic between them. At Forward Base Alpha, born under Alliance control, they found the truth buried beneath the burning mountain, an ancient power source, older than both human and Valeri, humming with energy that could change everything if handled with respect. Alliance scientists confirmed what Tyr's legends implied. The resource conflicts that fueled war could end if the power was shared, managed, understood rather than worshipped or weaponized. When they returned to the surface, they brought a peace proposal. At first the Drari resisted. Pride, fear, old lies. But the evidence mission logs, abandoned relics, the undeniable display of Alliance power used not to conquer, but to hold the line forster. Reckoning, the Drari leadership agreed to negotiate. 6 months later, Nathan stood on the porch of a rebuilt cabin that was no longer lonely. A thriving settlement had grown around it, humans and Valeri working side by side. Patrols mixed. Research shared. Children of both peoples laughing where predators once hunted. Tyr stepped out beside him, lavender skin glowing in sunset light, soulstone pulsing in harmony with his. "The Dry delegation has arrived," she said. "Their leader wishes to perform the river of trust with you." Nathan smiled. Remembering purple grass and storm-grey eyes, a canteen nearly empty. "All this," he murmured, "because I gave water to a stranger." Tyr intertwined her fingers with his. "Such a small act," she said softly, "to alter the course of worlds." Nathan kissed her forehead gentle, grateful. The smallest actions usually do. Together they walked toward the gathering, toward diplomacy and rebuilding, toward a future neither prophecy nor protocol could have predicted. Nathan didn't call it destiny. He called it human, a stubborn instinct to help, to connect, to build bridges instead of walls. And as the river of trust flowed on between cabin and camp, between planet and stars, Nathan knew with quiet certainty that he was exactly where he belonged, at the confluence of two worlds, where compassion had become the strongest technology of all.